This is the ERP Advisor.
Today's episode, questions to ask when hiring an ERP Selection Consultant.
Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us for our webinar today. Questions to ask when hiring an ERP Selection Consultant. Shawn Windle is one of our speakers for today. Shawn is the founder and managing principal of ERP Advisors Group based in Denver, Colorado. Shawn has over 25 years of experience in the enterprise software industry, helping hundreds of clients across many industries with selecting and implementing a wide variety of enterprise solutions. His podcast, The ERP Advisor, has dozens of episodes with thousands of downloads and is featured on prominent podcast platforms such as Apple and Spotify. We are joined today by our one and only Erica Windle, consulting industry expert, principal of operation, and sales extraordinaire here at ERP Advisors Group. She is also Shawn's wife and co-host in life. Thank you, Shawn and Erica. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Juliet.
Yes, of course. So over the years, my gosh, you both have fielded thousands of calls from people who are beginning their ERP projects, and you've uncovered the best practices for selecting the right ERP selection consultant and knowing the questions to ask and the expectations that should be set during the sales process. So with that, Shawn, I think I'm going to start with you. If you could just talk to us a little bit about what are the kinds of consultants who offer ERP selection advisory services?
Good question. So I guess, in terms of background, I've been around for a bit. Why on all of these calls do I feel like I'm getting older and older? I don't understand what's happening. Oh boy.
Right.
Got a big birthday next year, so it's becoming more real to me as I threaten Erica for what we're going to do for it. But anyway, global trip, but we'll see. So when I think about my career and the kinds of selection folks that I've run into over the years, I think there's probably 5 different kinds. And Erica, maybe if I forget one, please jump in too. But there's firms like us, we'll start with that are truly independent, objective. They don't take a dime from anybody but their clients. And it's all that they do. Right. So we don't do cybersecurity audits. We don't do even IT high level strategy and planning and policies and procedures, or we don't even do just business process improvement projects. Right. We literally just focus on ERP advisory work. And there's a handful of firms, not that many, several here in Colorado, it turns out, but also one up in Toronto and sort of out of the Midwest and stuff. So a few of those. The second kind, I'll go to the far extreme, is the big 4. So that list is Deloitte, PwC, E&Y, and KPMG, I think right now, right? Now there's other global systems integrators, or GSIs, that also do that, TCS, Tata Consulting Services, and others. And their focus is much more about a, full breadth of offering for a client, right? Not only would they do an ERP selection, but they may do the implementation. They may also do the audit, right? Usually there's some separation or segregation of duties there they have to work through, but they offer a whole slew of services. Rates are pretty high, and you need 50, 60, 100 people on a project, or even 5, they've got that. So that's sort of the far extreme. And then in between there, you have more regional accounting firms. Most of those firms, I will tell you, they also have an implementation practice for specific software vendors. So they may be independent and objective because they have multiple practitices, right? Oh, we can help you because we do this, this, and this. Yeah, but you're really trying to sell the implementation services. I'm just going to say it. So there's those, but they're good firms too out there, regional accounting firms. Then you have, I would say, sort of big 4 management consulting firms that are out there. So a lot of people worked at big 4, and then they came together to do more regionally focused work, where they're more market kind of driven. Oh, we don't travel because we're selling to people in a specific geographic area or whatever. Those guys will do ERPs. The guys and gals will do ERP selection work, but they also are looking for a more in-depth relationship where maybe they'll sell an ERP selection and then do some BI and analytics work, and then they'll do some maybe some optimization for IT systems or whatever. They're looking for, land and expand, grab a couple people, put them on the project on the client, and they're with that client for the duration of the existence of the client if they have their way. I'm feeling a little get the cuts in. But then the last one is what we call, I think Erica came up with this phrase, the single shingle, which is an individual who has some, maybe they've been an IT director, CIO, maybe they implemented ERP before, and then they kind of get some calls from their friends. Hey, we're going through an ERP project and we need some help. Can you help us out? Sure. They get a pretty good bill rate and they can work 1,000 hours a year and make pretty good money. And, they're really good for very specific stuff. I mean, they're not in a ton of projects like we are at any given time. But that's also, those are the 5 that I can think of. Erica, would you say there's any others?
I would offer to say that sometimes software vendors, I don't know if they're maybe like implementation partners that also are selling software, they will offer to do a selection for you. And they'll say, well, we'll help you figure out what the right product is, but they're hoping to get the implementation, and maybe they're going to sell the software. It's hard to say.
Yeah. So Erica, let me ask you, from your experience of talking with a lot of different clients, prospects, the gamut, what type of experience should someone consider when looking at hiring a selection consultant?
Sure. Yeah. There's quite a few different factors that it's kind of like when you're going to buy a car and you're trying to get it financed or you're trying to pay for it. There's all these different factors. What ones are more important to you? And some people, when you're buying a car, the down payment's the most important thing, or the trade-in value is the most important thing. And like, oh, I don't really care what the interest rate is, or I just need to know what the monthly payment is. Can I afford it with my bills? I don't really care what the interest rate is, or even the trade-in. So you can get like sort of focused on sort of one dimension. And I'd say I see that in the sales process with literally having met with thousands of prospects, that there are many dimensions to what kind of experience your consultant could have. Should you have checked for it? Would you want it or not? Do you even know that you should think about it? So I think it's a great question, because some prospects have in their mind, well, I want somebody who is an expert in my industry. So there are certain people out there who can provide the industry expertise of your particular company, and they've been there and done it. And maybe they were C-level and they saw the big implementations when they were in industry, and now they're going to come in and, well, they're basically going to tell you how they did it at their company, because they're not really a consultant. That's something to keep in mind. And I also am over the recruiting, and we vet hundreds of people a month, I would say. And so we have to actually sort of sift through this, even for getting our own consultants. So it is something to look at. If that is a very important factor for you, then it is something to realize an industry expert is not necessarily a consultant. They're really more a person that is going to tell you how to do it. So if that's what you're looking for, that's one thing to check in the background of who would be on your project, or maybe even the sort of the theme of the practice that you're talking to. And then I think that when you sort of look at what you're looking for the consultant to do, like the ones that hire us, I mean, they hire us because this is what we have, is the breadth of experience across many software vendors, implementation partners, sizes, industries. So we have experience across the ERP industry versus like the vertical that the prospect is in. So then you see like the bird's eye view of what enterprise applications are capable of and how they sort of fit across different industries. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Like if you're like a retail clothing manufacturer, you only want somebody with retail clothing experience, that is going to definitely narrow your field of finding somebody that also knows about ERP, other than the 1 or 2 implementations they did at the last retail clothing company they were at. So that would be like my first couple sort of differentiators that I try to help prospects sort of understand, even on the very first call. And Shawn, what would you kind of say about that? What you've seen with, if depending on that experience, how do those implementations in the long run? Because ultimately, most companies, some companies and organizations aren't necessarily expecting or ready to change software when they hire us, but the majority are. Like I would say the lion's share, 70 to 80%, they probably are expecting to change software, which means a purchase eventually. And then obviously the hard part, the implementation, and the whole goal of getting a consultant is hopefully one day you're turning off that old software or stop using it and as many of the manual processes, and you start to use your new software. And so what would you say to that, Shawn, about the different kinds of experience of consultants that could help you be successful with that or not?
I think back to when I was with Accenture, and we had the luxury, and the firm still does, where a person, luxury is, I have really got to be more positive today. I'm going to try to be more positive. I'm going to be positive. Good. Because at a larger management consulting firm, an organization has a ton of cash and has a lot of value for consultants, wants the expert. So if you talk about a retailer in the clothing industry, like you said, Erica, and you're looking for enterprise software that would be everything from point of sale, supply chain, financials, planning, forecasting on the production side, as well as on the financial side, right? I don't know, take Lululemon as an example, or take a larger, again, clothing retailer. You can afford, and you probably want, the top experts who've been through this a gazillion times for your particular industry, right? And you got the cash to pay the $400 or $500 an hour or whatever it is for that really detailed, really super niche consultant. And you need that, right? Because a decision that could go wrong could cost you tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Remember years ago, Levi Strauss made some systems decisions. Gosh, I think that was back when I was in college. What was that? There was some system that was put in place that didn't go well. This was a while ago. So, so everybody then gets that framework of I need to have that expert for my business. And I'm here to dispel a little bit of the myths of consulting right here and right now. You don't really need that. So I'm wearing a belt. I wish I could show you, but I'd have to take off my belt. That'd be inappropriate. But from one of our clients, actually, they're in the clothing industry, and they make belts, really more leather goods, and smaller than one of the larger organizations out there. And when we started talking to them, they need and want apparel industry experience, absolutely, because you think about this belt that I'm wearing. It comes in multiple sizes. Mine's small, of course. I wish. That's another story for another time. But that's just one version of a belt, multiple sizes, and they have hundreds of different versions of belts. Same thing for shoes that come in different sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So this matrixed items, it's called, is very complex. Pricing is very complex. Product categories are very complex, et cetera, right? So there's these unique business requirements that every vertical or micro vertical have. And you got to have a consultant that understands that. If they don't understand the basics of your business and your unique business requirements, you're just hosed. It doesn't matter what they know about ERP or not. So they do have to understand your industry. But do they have to be a specialist in just your industry? And I think what we've seen across our mid-sized organizations, and that's companies from 10 million to a couple billion, is that the consultant also has to bring ERP experience, and not just, I worked with this, I implemented Microsoft Dynamics at my last company. When somebody says that to you, your antenna needs to go up, because that doesn't mean squat. That could be 4 different products, actually 6, 7. It could be CRM. It could be an old AX, NAV, GL, SL, or it could be the new Business Central or finance and whatever, finance and supply chain, finance and operations, finance and blah, blah, blah. Plus there's all their customer experience stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So if somebody says, oh, I implement Microsoft Dynamics right away, that's like a red flag for us, because the fact that they're not saying what version of it is tells you like, whoa, this person doesn't even know that there's multiple versions, right? Well, I just ran through that really fast. Rebecca, did you get all that? Good. Okay,
It was
cool.
Microsoft GP, not GL, but anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's right. GP, exactly. So, you kind of have to have this balance of industry experience. For us, we don't work with some industries, frankly, because we're just not experts in them. When I look at like the provider side of healthcare, insurance companies, banks, those are industries we just don't play in. And we will tell the prospect that right from the get-go. But really just about everything else we do. And it's incredible, but we have a lot of experience across those areas. But I don't know, that was kind of a long-winded answer, Erica, and Juliet, but I do think that's the model that people have in their head, is that, hey, I was at this company and we hired these consultants and they really understood distribution, transportation, down to very detailed level with carriers and et cetera, right? For a trucking company. And they're used to that level of expectation with consultants until they start spending their own money at maybe a mid-size organization where they say, wow, those people are really expensive, and they don't know the mid-size ERP market that well. So you really do need that balance.
Yeah, I would add one final point to just that question, Juliet, about the experiences. And we've seen this even in just our own sort of vetting of resources, right? Is that there are just some consultants that are a little more academic about the requirements. It's like this big academic exercise to map out everything and go to a super detailed level on the requirements and do this super detailed matrix action to map it to the software functionality. But at the end of the day, like, packaged applications are an average, and Shawn has said this on other calls. Maybe that's not the exact word you use, Shawn, but a packaged application is like an average of the functionality that a company needs. It has to be configured to your usage, and it's not custom for you. It's not custom built. So there is no absolute perfect application, and you can just eliminate way too many vendors because, this one feature won't be exactly done in their application. But we're trying to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, but we're trying to get the client to it's good enough. And then we can optimize it later. So I do think that some consultants, it's something to look for. Are they practical in their approach towards how we're going to approach? That doesn't mean sloppy. That doesn't mean, uncareful, or it just means that what's the practicality? And I think that's why companies do hire us, because our needs analysis is a practical approach to what do I need? How much is the software going to cost? What's the roadmap? Do we have any unmitigatable change management risks? And what's a short list? Like, it's not like, and it takes like a month. It doesn't have to take like 6 months of torturous interviewing and process diagramming and, hundreds of slides or something. So.
Yeah. So with that, Erica, let me ask you, what kinds, if someone has made the decision to bring in a selection consultant, what kind of assistance should they expect to get once they hire someone and bring them on board?
When they're in the sales process, or after they get hired?
For all the above.
Yeah, probably both. Yeah. Yeah. If you could talk to both of them, that'd be great.
Yeah. I think, like, just in the vein of this conversation of like, well, if somebody's out there, I kind of know we have to go get ERP. I have no idea where to start, which is why we put this call together. It's kind of a black hole. Like, there's the port controller, or the director of IT, who's like, I don't even know where to start. I know I don't want to talk to all the software vendors yet. I know I want somebody to help me, but I don't even know how to get somebody to help me. So we wanted to make this broadcast to help give you sort of all the, help you align all the different data that you can think with and decide for yourself what is important for you. So I would say, based on how we help our clients through the sales process, which I consider a pretty consultative approach, it's built on a gradient to help get to understand them, let the prospect get to understand us. And I think that I think that that's workable because, we do come across sales processes that prospects create that are not very workable. And then we just decide we're not going to participate in them. So what I think is helpful if somebody is out there considering getting a consultant, there's like the procurement viewpoint of we're just going to put together a big RFP and send it out and see what people answer back with, as if we're, some industrial part that's a commodity that, you can get from 10 different distributors, and let's see who's got the best terms and down payment and credit limits and discounts or something. And I wrote a whole blog about that. So that's kind of like, I think, the extreme where you're not even doing anything to get to know the people, because it's not a like objective process. It's a consultative, subjective process of working with individuals that you're relying on to help you make one of the hardest and riskiest decisions that your business may ever face. So if you want to have a good process, that's why we've built ours this way, because we think it helps us make sure we're a good fit for a client, and that a client has a chance to make sure we're a good fit for them. And it's good when each of us can end off with the other one, because that's not going to work for our company. Like, good, that's good to find out now. So a gradient scale of approach of calls is the first kind of thing to think with, like an introductory call. And some places it might be super introductory, depending on how junior the person is. Or maybe it's, like I do our introductory calls. So people get to meet with a more senior person on the first call, and we can both figure out quickly if we should continue talking. So there should just be like at least a few different meetings where you can, on a gradient, get to know more and more, and that you can get actionable information at every single one of those calls, that it's not just spinning your wheels. And you should have a certain product that you're getting out of every single meeting. So I think, sort of setting that expectation with, you're a busy, if you're the one charged with doing this, your time is busy. You'd like to know that the person you're meeting with has an agenda in mind and something they want to accomplish, and not just rambling on or have no idea what they're doing. So that would be my first sort of thing to think with. The next one is that quickly, that the person that you're working with on the sales side should be able to give you, the customer, some high level pricing and timing information. That's what everybody's looking for. I have no idea how much it costs to get a consultant. How does this work? Like, so the company you're talking to or the consultant you're meeting with, they better have a way to sort of rapidly assess that. And if they can't, then maybe their processes are not very dialed in, and it's very subjective, and maybe we just decide how much we can make it be if we can. Anyway, who knows? So I think that, like, seeing that there's a methodology of how to, like, get some pricing, get some timing, I think that's super important, because if they're just like super like, well, I couldn't possibly tell you anything, until I know, all this other information, it's like, well, okay, it's just a little too academic, I think. Like you have to be able to know your own averages in your company of like how long a project takes and what your basic rates are, your rate schedule, and be able to tell people that. So, and it's fair to like insist on a meeting to do that. Like, don't expect like the consulting firm to just send you all that in an email blind, right? Because they have to get to know some information about you. Like, sometimes on some prospects' websites, I comb through the website and I still don't totally understand what their business. I don't actually know what their industry is until I talk to them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought you were doing construction with solar panels out in the field. Like, no, we just distribute the solar panels. We never touch them or install them or support them. I'm like, oh, I mean, if I just assumed that by looking at your website, it would give you completely wrong information about thinking you're a field services, construction, job costing company, and you're really just distributing, for instance. So, like, I think that in that sense, you should expect to need to talk to a person and not just only get information over email. So that's the next point.
That's good. That's a lot, Erica. Ooh, I would have just stopped right there.
A lot of great information. Oh my gosh. Shawn, would you add anything to the conversation about once a selection consultant has been hired and brought on board and you're in the process of the project?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you gotta like the people you're working with. I think we see that over and over and over. And how do you know that before you hire them if you're going to like them? Well, you should for sure meet the implementation or you should meet the implementation resources also. I say that a gazillion times a day. But to answer your question, Juliet, if somebody's going to hire an ERP selection firm, an ERP advisory firm, they need to meet the advisors that they're going to work with unequivocally, because not only are you trusting these people to give you good advice, but you're going to be spending a good amount of time with them. And you're kind of going out on a limb by doing the ERP project anyway, because it's a big change for the company, the organization you're working for. And you just want to have somebody there that you like to talk to, because if you don't, you won't talk to them, and they may call and stop by and everything else. Like, oh, that's great. Okay, fine. See you later. Huh? But as opposed to just not like hanging out, doing whatever at the pool. That's not what I mean. But I mean, having somebody that you really want to talk to, you want to engage with, because what happens is the more communication there is, the more that the individual who's the sponsor, they learn more and more and more from their advisor. And there may be something they never thought about that the advisor just says, in between calls, or, you do one demo and then you got a half hour, an hour break, and then you do another one. And maybe during the hour break, you go grab a coffee or water or whatever together. And the consultant says something like, I noticed that the salesperson was on their phone the whole time, texting. And the client's like, well, I didn't even notice that because I was watching the screen. And the consultant says, yeah, I mean, it's the salesperson. So they kind of go away after the sale's done, but that was really bad and really out manners. And, sometimes they're texting for help. How do we handle this? How do we handle that? Or sometimes they're texting their spouse. I don't know. But there's little things that you can pick up on, because as a consultant, we know when you see a salesperson that's doing that, not only are they not just interested in your deal, but they're probably not qualified. And that's why they're not more active. So there's these little things that we've picked up on over the years that I don't even know how to communicate it. I mean, maybe there needs to be some book or something at some point. We'll talk about that later, Rebecca. But for now, having that advisor that you just really like having on your side, like Quentin on our team, Q, he likes to be known as the quartermaster. Q, not really, but he just goes by Q. We have great testimonies on our site about how, I really liked working with Q, or Carly's the same way, where our team have given, confidence to their sponsor and have educated them the whole time, right? Even our junior folks, we see that a lot where they get compliments from our clients because we just help them through this process. It's just, like Erica said earlier, this is not a transaction. Even when you're buying software, right? You're buying software and there's people all around it. But at the end of the day, all the people go away and there's your software. So you got the software. Selection services are just not like that. Yes, you're going to have contracts that are signed, right? Every ERP advisory firm that's worth their whatever, I don't know, the weight in gold or whatever, worth their salt. What's the phrase, Erica? Erica's like my second mind, by the way. She keeps track of things.
Worth their salt or weight in gold.
Worth their weight in gold. Exactly. They're going to get you through the contract negotiations for sure, right? And they're going to save you all of their fees on the negotiations, by the way. That absolutely has to happen, or the firm's not worth their weight in gold.
Yes.
Anyway, but at the end of the day, you got to like the people that you're working with. So when you're vetting these firms, you've got to meet those people, and you'll get sort of a vibe, you'll get a feel, you'll get whatever, the communication from them and the tone and blah, blah, blah. But you really do need to do that for sure. It's just so important.
Yeah.
I would just offer Juliet, just another couple quick points on the assistance, like leading into deciding, is there's, as Shawn mentioned, getting introduction to, a potential team, depending on timing, who would be on their team, like who would be their consultant, right? There's getting a statement of work. And you would think that that's obvious, but we definitely have heard from our clients who hired us that their other competitors, it was just a black box. It wasn't very detailed. It was just sort of like, making you know what up, basically. Is what the engagement would be. So you should be able to get a statement of work that has an hourly rate, a number of hours. And then, each client has sort of maybe their own kind of terms and things they want. Sometimes they want an MSA. You should be able to get help with that. Like we have one we'll provide, and we can also look at the clients, but just being able to help the client get through all those hurdles, because this is not their day job. So being very high touch, white glove service, even in the sales process, it also shows what kind of service you're going to get once you're a client. So we can, like, for instance, sometimes we give out sample deliverables that are completely redacted, and it's only like a deliverable of this or that. And there's no way you would ever know where it came from, but it's similar to the industry. So like, well, what does your work even look like? Is it going to look like my high school seniors PowerPoint, or, how professional? Because you would be surprised at what people's deliverables look like left to their own devices. I see it on the recruiting side. And then offers to meet with the references. Not everybody asks for references. Some people ask for references in the first call, and it's like, well, if we're a finalist and you're really serious and you're going to go through getting a statement of work from us and all those things, and we know we're a finalist, we will definitely introduce you to our references. But as you can imagine, a company's references are extremely busy, and only like the most viable opportunities should you expect. If you should only get to meet with them if you really are serious, like not just kicking the tires or using it as a deflection to do your own diligence first. We have dozens and dozens, if I don't even know how many, Rebecca, we have on our website of our own testimonials, but like, I'll send those over, like some relevant ones, like, okay, this is probably who we would introduce you to. You can see what they've already said and let us put on the website. So are there any testimonials on the website? That would be something to look for. If there are none, like many competitors I can think of, that says something too, right? So those are some things to think about, like that you can get more comfortable with a firm you're going to pay, to help you through this journey.
Yeah, that's a lot of great information. Erica, my gosh. Let me ask you this too. And Shawn, if you'd like to add to it, my next question is, what factors should a company consider when they are bringing in a consultant to determine whether or not this advisory firm is independent of any sort of formal software or technology platform agreements, just to ensure objectivity in their services that they provide you, instead of steering you down one certain road? Like, could you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Erica?
Yeah. So I think like that on the first call or the first meeting with somebody is to establish, do you represent any brand of technology, any platform? Are you in any agreements with any software companies? Do you sell the software? If you don't sell the software, do you implement any products? Because those, like that side of the house is completely different than a company that sells no products, has no software agreements, and doesn't take any commissions for the sale of the products. So it's just something that what's important to you. Like I would say that that's definitely why companies come to us to, like, I definitely want somebody who's independent, who does not sell any of the products. I don't want to be corralled into a certain brand or vendor, right? So it does just depend on your own personal preference. If you already know you want to pick vendor ABC though, well, okay, fine. Then you should probably just scour the market for the best teams that know your industry, right? Unless you want somebody to help you select that particular product and vet it, like, okay, well, that's possible too. But there's really kind of one side of the coin or the other. And like, we don't have any formal agreements with any software companies. And when you think about how that acts to your benefit in the implementations can get very hard. And the implementation partner has their methodology that's, in place that the vendor dictates. And sometimes they may push back on the client that, well, that's the methodology. Well, guess what? Well, ERP Advisors Group is helping our client in the implementation. It's not our methodology. We're not beholden to that vendor. They don't control us. They don't pay us a dime. And we are in lots of other deals probably where we're looking at that product. So because we're completely independent on that side of the coin, we actually have some leverage on our client's behalf during the implementation, where we can go to the VPs and executives that we already established at the end of the selection for the client, or other people that we have contacts with in the different vendor channels. Whereas if you are somehow beholden to one of those products, you probably have to step back into line and back off. Do you want us to mess with your commissions? Do you want us to mess with your revenue or your status or levels or tiers or whatever? So I think that that's something to be aware of for sure.
Shawn, anything you'd like to add to that?
So much good information, honey. Whew. Trying to process it all. Okay. I guess the only thing I would add is, so to exactly to your question, Juliet, like, how do you really know if somebody's objective, right? I think that's kind of what it comes down to. We had I keep saying, because I'm thinking about the best way to say this, because I don't want this to be a commercial about ERP Advisors Group. That's not the purpose of this call. The purpose of this call is to inform those that are looking at selection firm what to look for. Sure. Okay, good. The second thing is, you may never know what not just the selection firm, but also the selection firm's employees are doing with vendors on the side. Actually, to be totally honest with you, even in our business, I had a question about somebody who left recently that it seemed like maybe they were doing something that we don't do as a firm. May have been why they left. Because it's very, very easy for somebody to go to a website from the software vendor and just register, hey, here's a lead, you should go talk to them. Here's a name, here's an email, see you later. And then if that deal closes, that referral can get 10% of the deal. If it's $100,000 annual contract, they get 10 G's just for filling out a web form. So, we've looked at all of the referral models, frankly, as a firm, and none of them have made sense for our organization at all. Although the food, I always say this, we always take food, but not like, like, what is that brownies place called, Erica?
Fairy tale brownies or
yes,
cake bubbles or something.
Yes.
Something like that.
So I think, look, again, the selection firm is maybe even kind of an old-fashioned kind of a relationship, I think, where you're picking the people that you trust, that you want to be with. And when you look them in the Zoom eye, you do need to say, now, I really need to know, are you taking commissions, fees, cuts, referrals, anything from any vendor or not? Just ask the question and watch what the people say. If they say, we don't do that, that's not our business, we looked at it in the past, we don't do it now, or they say, well, yeah, we take cuts from all the vendors. That's fun. And there was a competitor of ours that was like that, where they would just take 10% from everybody. We don't do that, because inevitably you do come along in a selection and you find some implementation partner you've never worked with, and you don't have a contract with them to then bring them into your deal. You just need to bring them into the deal. So I think you got to ask the question first, very directly and bluntly, and watch what the response is. But I also think the second thing is it's a very, very small industry. And if you're talking to a vendor and you say, hey, I thought I wanted to go with whatever solution, but now I think I need a selection firm. Can you refer me a couple firms? You should know, and we get those referrals a lot, frankly. You should know that those selection firms are working with those vendors. Now, they're still independent objective, but they do business with them. So that one might be okay. But if you, another good question to ask is, the selection firm, if we select you for the selection firm, and if we picked a specific application, would you do the implementation, like the technical work? Could you do the technical work? And if the answer is yes, then they're not objective and independent. Oh no, we do Intact, NetSuite, Microsoft, and whatever Acumatica. We do all four, so we can still be independent objective. Well, what if as an organization, our requirements fit outside of the experience that any of your 4 implementation teams have. You've just never implemented for a nonprofit membership before, just as an example. Well, no, we've done that before. Well, okay, but did you do that for all 4 practices? No, they haven't. I guarantee it. So, there's those are the 2 key questions I would say, or two key points I would say, just to bubble it down, to make it very simple. Here's a nugget. The first one is, look them in the eye. Do you receive any fees, commissions, cuts, referrals, anything from any software vendor or implementation partner?
Yeah.
Then the second question is, if we were to pick any app in the market, would you be able to do the technical configuration of that application? It doesn't matter. Don't use a name. Literally, you can say any app. Can you do the technical configuration? If they say yes, then inevitably they will not be objective and independent. They need to feed their other lines of businesses. They use the ERP selection as an introductory service to meet companies in the market to feed into their implementation services, right? Frankly, I think this is why most of the ERP advisory firms are relatively boutique, as we like to say, which is fancy for small, because it's a hard business model. Also, it's a very hard. It'd be great if we had whatever practices too. And maybe when we get super big, we will have all those practices, but it will still be independent and objective somehow. I don't know. I don't see that, but for now, I can tell you that it's a hard business to just do ERP selection. There's the needs, there's selection. We do client-side implementation services. I think most folks that do what we do, they say, hey, we'll stick around during your implementation and help you out how you need to. I think that's important. But at the end of the day, Juliet, those are kind of the 2 key questions I would say people have to ask.
Okay. That is a lot to consider for sure, but something that everyone needs to if they're going to go down the path of hiring an advisory firm, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Erica, let me ask you this. You touched on this very, very briefly a bit ago, but if someone is going to bring on board an advisory firm, what do most consultants charge for their services?
Ooh, that's a good point, or a good question. I definitely don't know the rates of all the consulting firms. But there's kind of the model. First of all, the model, time and materials. So there's a certain number of hours with an hourly rate. And like with us, I mean, it's like we bill you for what you use. It's not like a contract, but that is something to look for, that if it's time and materials, and they don't use all the hours, do you have to pay them all out? Like there could be some clause or something that there's no getting it done cheaper. I don't know. We just decide not to do that because we just don't. There's also fixed fee. So it's like, it doesn't matter how many hours it takes the firm, you're getting it for a certain price. So however they make the payments or down payment or something like that. So there's pros and cons to both, for sure. One thing is like if the company underscoped it and they are going to start losing money and they gave it to you for a fixed fee to be competitive, then you might start to lose some attention on the deal, right? Because there's Juliet. It's probably Shawn's microphone. We need a step stool for Juliet.
Technical difficulties on my end. And so now here I am with Shawn. So we're making do.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, sorry. I can finally hear you. So there's the fixed fee arrangement, which may work out. And then, I don't know for sure if any ERP selection consultant works for referral fees only, but I've definitely met IT consultants that do, where they'll help do some IT project. And for all I know, they might be doing some ERP selections where they don't charge anything. It's only contingent on anything you purchase. And then they do register those leads, or they have some sort of kickbacks from all the vendors they're working with. So you could say, well, it's good. Yeah, I get all this free help, but guess what? That free help is going to definitely be funneling you into definitely a purchase, right? Because then he or she is going to finally get paid. Versus, I think when you're paying by the hour, we would have never kind of force a client to purchase or sign the software contracts until they feel absolutely comfortable with it. So, those are just 2 things to weigh. right? You're going to feel bad if you don't make a purchase and you didn't pay the person for their time. So that's something to look at there. I can't really think of any other method, Shawn.
Yeah, on that point, there's a firm that does some HR selection stuff. And that's exactly how they get paid is the vendors pay them.
They do.
They do
Okay.
100%. And they'll tell a prospect, look, you don't pay us a dime. It's free. And we get paid by the software vendor when you buy software. So therefore it's independent, objective, blah, blah. But the reality of what Erica just said is true. When you pay a firm, again, whether it's us or somebody else, and you're paying them for their time, you're in exchange. They're giving you value in the moment and you're paying for the value, right? But if you want like a list of the top 3 vendors and some phone numbers of people to call and maybe just some AI driven decision on which vendor you should go with, here you go have fun with that. Sure. Then it makes sense to get a cut of that. So you sort of have to decide, for those that have made it 47 minutes into our call. I'm glad you came over because you look so beautiful today. I was like, where's Juliet? This is great.
My computer will have to have a little
Throw it out the
update or
window.
something.
Yes.
I think it's the internet connection sometimes on that hallway, because sometimes my computer does that too.
Yeah.
Mm,
But the key thing is that you do get what you pay for when it comes to ERP advisory work. And if there's somebody who can do it for half or a quarter of what the other folks are saying they can, you're not going to get the same value. They're going to get paid some other way. And you just should know about it. What's right, what's wrong. I mean, we have opinions. Erica has opinions. She could do a whole call for 5 hours about that, honey.
Erica's free consulting service.
Exactly. That's right. Like Lucy. So, we really do tell people, and I think it's important to, again, to those who've made it this far, is just know where the people you're working with make money from. And the simpler models are better. They just are, because that guarantees that the person doesn't have some motivation or some impetus to take you down a path that isn't the best for you. Because at the end of the day, all the consultants go away. Like, we're out, after the go live, and maybe we help out a little bit more, we're gone. Right. And these organizations are stuck with these apps. And if you have somebody that's making some short-term decision based off, they get a 15% cut with one firm, one software vendor, and a 10% with the other, but it's the wrong one, like, that's bad.
Right. Well, I think we are coming to the end of our time, but any final thoughts on a company when they're interested in bringing in an advisory firm or selection firm to help them? Any last minute nuggets that you'd like to share? Erica, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think if you sort of break down the kinds of firms, you're either going to look at the single shingle or the lone wolf, lone ranger, single person that's done a couple of projects or a couple implementations. Maybe they've done more. There's that kind of person where you're at risk of them, being on vacation or get sick, or they're upside down in their finances and they just sort of go belly up or something, right? So there's that model. There's more of like a boutique sort of firm, anywhere from several people to several dozen people, that it's going to be more like that leveraged model where you're not relying on just one person. There's probably sort of a team approach. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, because people do quit or get sick, whatever, those kinds of things. So it seems like the smaller firms like that can work for the small to mid-market. That's why our clients, I think, come to us. And then there's the kind of the bigger consulting firms. But usually they're kind of entrenched with some kind of technology product. The bigger the firms, they almost always have a product or an implementation. So it's something to be aware of. If the private equity company says, well, we've used them at lots of other places. Yeah. Okay. Well, guess what? They sell whatever, Microsoft. So they're probably going to get you to implement Microsoft or NetSuite or whichever product they happen to implement. And then there's the big four, and there's definitely a place for the big four. And when you have global people across languages and very, different time zones, and, different accounting and localization things to consider, even if you're not even that big of a company, we have had some prospects we've talked to, they're not necessarily big four size, but their complexity does necessitate they go big four because they need somebody in, like somebody recently, New Zealand, which is just very different than, working in the United States. So there's a reason and a place for the big four too, even for the smaller companies. So there is just kind of understanding your own needs. You have to start to do that at least a little bit.
It all comes down to needs, right?
I know, right? Before you can even get the consultant to help you with the ERP needs.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. So Shawn, any final nuggets for you?
I do think that, again, there's a reason why all these models exist, like Erica just talked about. And everybody's, I think there's I would even say 95% of us out there are really good people. I think there's really good people that want to help others. That's why they get into this industry. There's some weird folks out there for sure. And you'll figure it out when you look them in the eye and say, how do you get paid? And they're like, oh, I don't want to tell you. Okay, good. Go someplace else. But for the rest of them, yeah, I think Erica's right. Going back to needs, right? If you want a relationship, if you want somebody that you can call, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. I do think the boutique ERP advisory firms are right. But we have a client that worked with us, then they switched over to like a regional accounting firm because they did want more services from one company. Fine. We're not going to do that, right? Eide Bailey is, or Moss Adams, or RSM, great, and then like Erica said, we've had mid-sized organizations that say we really do want to go big four because that's the background of the people that are making the selection. They just feel more comfortable. You don't get fired when you hire IBM, used to be the saying back in the day. You don't get fired if you hire PwC or Deloitte or whatever, unless the budget goes 10x over.
Yeah.
That's another story. But fine, like go get those people, right? And if you have a good friend and she did selections for, or she did implementations at Oracle, and now she helped out a couple things, and then you want to bring her in for your startup to help you with software, and you trust her, makes total sense.
Yeah.
There are different reasons why you use different vendors for sure. Software, ERP advisory vendors. Just make sure you do know what you need and make sure that you're talking to the right kinds of folks. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shawn. Thank you,
welcome.
Erica, for
Yes.
joining us today. And as always, for all your experience and knowledge and sharing that with everyone. So
Yeah,
thank you.
no weird dating analogies since our last
That's right.
Valentine's Day one. So that's probably better. Erica and I have evolved in our relationship together, right, honey?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
It's funny that you brought that up because I thought about bringing that up and I was like, no, nobody's going to remember that we did the Valentine's event. But
This is the special thing for the people that made it 53 minutes.
And that's
in.
exactly right.
Right. Because ERP selections are like dating, but we'll save that for another time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again. We appreciate it.
thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us for our webinar today. Please let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help in any way we can. And be sure to join us on Thursday, September 28th, when we will be hosting a free CPE webinar, Building a Business Case and Gaining Executive Support for Your ERP Upgrade. Our founding and managing principal, Shawn Windle, will help identify the key elements of successfully building a business case for a new ERP system. Please go to our website, erpadvisorsgroup.com, for more details and to register. ERP Advisors Group is one of the country's top independent enterprise software advisory firms. ERP Advisors Group advises mid to large size businesses on selecting and implementing a wide variety of applications from enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, human capital management, business intelligence, and other enterprise applications, which equates to millions of dollars in software deals each year across many industries. This has been the ERP Advisor. Thank you again for joining us.